Hello, my name is Robert Higgins, and we're doing another interview today. We've got Joshua Caldwell, who is director of his latest film, Mending the Line, but he's also done a lot of indie films over the years, including Infamous and Layover. Josh, I've been a fan of yours for a long time because you have one of those Cinderella stories that people love to like put up. Like, one of those things would be like, he made a movie for $6,000 and now he's a successful director in Hollywood. You know what I mean? People love
Yeah,
that Cinderella shit. And like they act like, this, like you sort of fell out of the sky and
overnight
yeah,
success. Yeah,
overnight success. Like, it's one of those
always.
things that people use to sell stuff. And I really enjoyed your story because you've always been very vocal when it comes to Layover, your first film, where you were like, I cheated a ton. Like, when I made this movie, like you like, even the movie itself is a cheat in itself. You were trying to, if I'm not, I don't want to speak for you, but you were trying to make a film that came off as a foreign film, where you are not a foreign director. So you set this
Right.
movie as an American, and you had it come out in French,
Mm-hmm.
and which
Yep.
is just genius. And you shot this movie for $6,000, and then it had immediate longevity in terms of being able to be put overseas, and things like that. Can you talk about that decision?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was really this idea that I had been I've been doing a lot of like these little web series things, when I
Mm-hmm.
was at my previous job, and on a couple of these scenarios, I had met actors like Natalie, who I knew spoke French. And I remember I was doing this kind of like this thing for Cybergeddon, and we were doing these little mini episodes. And I thought, oh, it'd be interesting to like help develop the sort of international feel of this, these sort of things to like, even though we were shooting in Los Angeles and it didn't take place in Los Angeles. So I was like looking for like there's a particular city street in Los Angeles that looks very European.
Right.
And it's an odd sort of street. I forget the name of it. People in LA would know it. It was downtown. Like we shot there to sort of mimic Berlin, like or Italy or something like that. And then I utilized like a couple actors that I knew spoke foreign languages. And I always loved the idea of sort of, not the whole movie, but like elements of that, sort of the fact that they're speaking in a different language, there's subtitles, seems like it kind of elevates it a little bit.
Right.
And so when I was looking at Layover, what what it was it came from a place of, you know, I thought that it was interesting that there were so many there are foreign films set in other cities. You set in other international cities, which makes sense. But I
Right.
had never really seen a foreign language film, to be specific, a foreign language film
Right.
that was set in the United States. And I just thought, I'm sure it's been done. I just had never seen it. And so I was
Right.
like, oh, like that's kind of interesting. I know an actress that speaks French, right? But then the other thing from kind of a story perspective, because for those who don't know, Layover is the story of this woman. She's traveling from Paris to Singapore. She's going to see her boyfriend. She believes her boyfriend's going to propose, and she has this kind of existential angst over this whole thing and becoming a wife and losing her autonomy and all this kind of stuff. And so she ends up having a layover in Los Angeles overnight when her connecting flight is canceled. And so she's stuck in LA, and she knows one person from her time in Paris, and she goes out to visit her. And this starts this kind of nighttime odyssey throughout LA. And I just felt like, the story of a woman traveling from New York to wherever, and
Right.
getting stuck in LA. It's like, well, you speak the language. It's like, what's the big deal?
Right.
It's
Exactly.
like, oh, I don't know. I need to know where I'm going. I can ask anybody. I can talk to anybody. And so by making it so that she only spoke French and did not understand English, one, there's a certain Frenchness to that idea, that they wouldn't even bother. But two, it immediately creates a barrier for her as a character to all these things that to us as native English speakers are sort of familiar and comfortable. And so
Right.
she's in a strange city. She doesn't know. She does not speak the language. And in some ways, she's sort of beholden to her friend who is bilingual now, right?
Right.
And takes her out. And then this motorcyclist that she meets who also happens to be bilingual, although he's actually pure French, like in real life. You never hear him speak English in the film. But it was like, and so she's kind of, what else is she going to do? She can't get into a cab and tell her cabbie where to go. Like she doesn't speak the language. So it just created this interesting set of obstacles that sort of made her journey much more interesting than it would have been if she had spoken the language.
Right. Immediately there's dramatic tension and like there's immediate like
and a strangeness
dramatic,
and even for people that are super familiar with the city, you are seeing it through a foreigner's eyes. It kind of is a completely different experience, than you would be if you were seeing it through sort of an English speaker's eyes, so to speak.
Right.
It was French because I knew Natalie spoke French. Like if Natalie had spoken Spanish, I don't know, or Italian, or like German. I don't know about German, but like, if it had been something else, another language, I probably would have just pursued that language because I was also making it with people that I knew I could get access to. I wasn't writing it sort of in a vacuum in French and then saying, well, I hope I can find people that speak French.
Right. And I think that's probably, that's indie film all over, that's sort of the sort of Rodriguez, like, what do I have access to? How can I sort of, make use of that, that kind of filmmaking. And it's very creative. And this film blows up, like I said, everybody loves to put that story up as, that kind of thing. But over the years, because I think my favorite story that I don't know, that really doesn't get talked about a lot is the story of your film Negative and how you made that. I think I love that the most because this is a story about, like, you got it was $100,000 or $150,000 to make that film. It was $100,000, and you were like, I'm going to make this with about 3 people in order to get the amount of time that I need to shoot this film. Like, I can shoot it on my own terms. And like the studio was kind of like, okay, like
right.
And
well, it was a direct reaction because in between doing Layover and Negative, I did 2 other projects. Immediately following Layover, I did a series for Hulu that was was made for a couple $1 million, and was shot in Miami and was a really cool sort of premise and experience. But it was a really challenging production because of the way the budget worked and all this kind of stuff that we were doing. Like I only had 15 days to shoot like 2 hours of content.
wow.
Right. So it was a series, but it was like each episode was like 20 minutes long. It was like a 22-minute type of thing. So it was like 6 episodes. And I remember just being like 15 days. Like, I mean, I shot Layover in 11, 12. So I get it. But I was just like, so it was a step up. Right. But it was like, I was just like, I mean, there was a day on that show where we had to do 15 pages in a day. And I remember being in this position where, we were bringing in some like, day player actors, and it was just like, boom, 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 1, 2, 3 takes, and you're moving on. It was like that kind of speed and schedule.
Right.
And I remember, part of what made Layover so good was the fact that, yeah, we shot in 11 days, but we would take 15 minutes to light a scene and we'd shoot for 8 hours.
Right.
It wasn't typically how you do it on films where you're probably shooting for like, you're actually camera rolling is for less than half of whatever your day is.
Right. Because most of it is just logistics. Right.
And so, and then we were into this world where I was doing this thing and I was just like, this sucks. Like these performances aren't good. I don't have any time to work with these guys. You're in Miami, which is not like there's this like, huge surplus of like really talented actors. Like the talented actors that are there are few and far between, and everyone else is trying to be a model. So like, I was like, I'm not getting my actors in a place where they can perform their best. And I don't have time to sort of help work with them to get the better performance. And then I went and did, and so Negative was a direct response to that particular project. I was like, this sucks. Like 15 days is ridiculous. I don't really want to do this again. I want to go make a movie sort of in the style of how we made Layover, but I want to have more money, and because I want to do something that's not like a drama. And so then after the Hulu series, I got hired to direct my second feature film, Be Somebody, which was, again, like $1 million budget all in. and we had 12 days to shoot that film. And, you know, it's just like, this is so dumb. Like, this is so frustrating. This is like an assembly line approach to filmmaking. I sort of go like, I don't even know what the point, like, why are we even doing this? Like, if we're not going to make something good and we're not going to put ourselves in a position to make something good, why are we doing this? And then I would see like, well, what are you paying for? Well, again, you're paying for a bunch of crew, you're paying for all these locations, and like, it's like your money is not going on screen. And what I really realized from Layover was, one, we do not need this kind of, you do not need like a full, like high level cinema camera package, you know, a bunch of like, you know, your camera grip and gaffer team to like light these expansive scenes, like, you know. And what I was frustrated by was you had to trade off, and what you always trade off when you have no time is you trade off how it looks for your performances. So like your performance, you spend forever lighting, and then you get 3 takes with your actors and you got to move on. And the thing that Layover proved to me was the opposite is what's going to make your film good. Very few people really care whether you got that little light in there, or like, is it like perfectly lit, or like what it looks like, right? If the acting sucks, like they do not care.
Right.
And so you know, Layover is a great example of that. Layover is not a well-lit film. People really love it. They think it looks beautiful, but it's not a well-lit film, you know? And so when Negative became sort of a response to those two situations. And that's why, one, I decided to DP it as well as direct it, because I was like, I need to prove that we can shoot with these cameras at high ISOs and reduce our need for sort of perfect lighting, and move fast and shoot a lot, you know. And if I hire a DP, they're going to argue with me. I mean, I love my DP. I think Eve is fantastic, but I was like, I've got to show that this thing is possible, because if I don't, then I'm just going to continue arguing with DPs about the ability to do this. They're going to say, you can't shoot above 3200 ISO. It's not going to look good now. And that's true on some cameras, but like, I was just like, I think there's an approach that we could take that's going to look different. It's going to be unique, and it's going to get the movie done. And the thing that I really also didn't want with Negative was I didn't want anybody telling me how to make the film. I didn't want anybody coming in and saying, well, you got to do it in 13 days or you got to do it in 15 days. Like I said to Marvista, who were really great partners on this, because I basically said, all I need is 100,000. That's it.
Right.
But if you give it to me, then I don't want to hear from you until I deliver the movie. Like I don't want to be turning in budget reports. I don't want to be telling you how I'm spending that money. I want you to let me go make the movie. And then once I have like an edit, I'll get your notes and all that sort of stuff. But I want you to let me go figure out how to make this movie in a way that's going to get you something great for $100,000.
Right.
And they're like, all right. Because it was so little to them.
Right.
Like the risk was so small. And so that's what we did. And then I sat down, you know, with our producer, William Borthwick, and he was wanting to kind of learn how to do this because he didn't really believe I was able to do it on Layover. And so I kind of had to teach everybody how to go and make this for the way we did. And, you know, so much of it is about how you're setting yourself up in the script stage, you know, finding those sort of ways where are you going to put your money, you know, living by sort of the 80-20 rule. So like on Negative, 80% of that movie was shot for 20% of the budget.
Wow.
And then the remaining 20% was shot with the remaining 80% of that budget. Right. And so we figured out, where do we want to put our money? Like, what's worth putting our money into, you know? And so like the first 20 minutes of that film was shot for under $5,000.
Wow.
Because if you look at that film, what is it? It's like, you know, Natalie up in a abandoned place that we got from a buddy. I own the camera. It's her downtown walking around. It's Simon downtown walking around. All that stuff cost us no money. The biggest expense for us at that time was paying for a 3 light, airy light package to light the apartment. You know, and so that was where we, you know, and then knowing that on Be Somebody, one of the big learnings from that was when you do the sort of car stuff, right, where you're mounting the camera to the car, and you know, that was like took forever, took so long to do that stuff. And so when I did negative, I was like, you know what, if we approach it this way, we can do that kind of higher end camera mounting and all that stuff, but we're going to spread out this schedule. So we're not trying to get it all done in a day. And so much of that driving stuff was literally me, a sound guy, and our producer and the 2 actors just going up to the desert and shooting like 1 scene a day, you know,
And just getting it done like that.
Just getting that scene. That's it. That's all we're doing is that scene. And I think we bought the camera mount for like $300, you know, and so we're just that way. All of a sudden we're not feeling pressured, and we can just do tons and tons and tons of takes to make sure that, you know, because you're always going to have technical issues. The camera not falls off, but it's out of focus on the whole take, or like, you know, whatever. And that way you're sort of free to just capture the scene you want. You know, it's easy because when you're doing like a 5-minute long driving scene, well, you're driving for 5 minutes. Now you got to drive back for 5 minutes.
Right.
You got to reset the camera. You know, if you do 3-4 takes, that's already, you know, an hour.
Exactly.
Just driving back and forth. Right. And then you got to put the camera on the other side of the car. And then you're doing it. So when you go up there and, you know, hey guys, like, you want to go up and do a driving scene today? And they're like, yeah, like, I'm free. Like, you sort of space it out, right? You're not doing. And then the other thing we did on negative was we did it like we did Layover. We did not shoot 37 consecutive days. We shot 37 days spread out over 4 months.
Like, why can't we adopt like a shooting schedule like that, where it's easy on cast and crew? Like, for me personally, in terms of just being indie, like, we put it in a rule where we don't shoot any longer than 8 hours anymore, 10 at the most, because it when you shoot past 8 to 10 hours, your actors don't have time to be people. They're human beings, and they're giving, like, you know, I'm sure you understand, they give like these spirited performances, and you try to squeeze the most out of them. It's extremely, like, emotionally exhausting, especially when you're doing repetitive shit. And then they, like, you know, they're exhausted, you're exhausted, and then they go home and they have just enough time to maybe put some food in them or just to get some sleep. And then they're right back on set the next day.
Right.
And they don't get to be people. And, you know, there's certain, you know, you understand that sort of draw where, like, you've done a film, you come out, like, you know, a couple months later and people are like, hey, have you seen this? And you're just like, what? You know what I mean? You have no idea what's going on in the world, because you're just out of it. You're completely, you've lived inside that film bubble. Right. And that is a killer. And so for me, when we started pulling it back so that people could go home, they could relax, de-stress, you know, be human beings for a few hours, then go to bed, come back, get a good night's sleep, come back, we have happy people. They come back and they work with us again. They don't complain. They're not, like, they're happy to be there. They're having a good time on set. And if that's the case, then I get those, when I call those folks to do other films of mine, my films aren't very highly budgeted, but they come back because they're not, they know that, like, I'm not going to exhaust them. And I don't understand why we do this whole thing of, like, where we film to exhaust. This is supposed to be, like, it's certainly the most expensive art form in the world, but it's also one of the most fun. Like, I spent my entire life trying to get back on set. I don't know how you feel about that, but
me too.
Yeah, just like trying to get back on set. It's so much fun being there, just to be in that creative environment where we're trying to literally just make something.
Right.
And when you can't, like, you know, have fun doing that, what's the point? What's the point of it then? Like, if it just feels like a job, then just get a job.
I mean, I'll tell you what it is. The reason why it's hard to do that is because everybody sort of believes that in order to make a movie at any budget level, you need to have a decent sized crew, right? You need to have your makeup artist, your costume designer, and you need to have grips and gaffers and all that kind of stuff. And so if you believe that, well, retaining that crew for 15 days over 2 months is like, forget it. Like, you're gonna have to pay them for their days off. Right. And so that's why, and you're gonna have to pay for the holding of the equipment over that period of time. Right. And so, like, when you have an enterprise, like, I mean, look, Mending the Line was a 22-day shoot.
Yeah, and you had like major Cal. You had Brian Cox in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, we had full cast. And by the way, like, look, if you're paying your actors nothing, I totally get sort of your argument. I mean, I don't want to exhaust actors either, but like if I'm paying them couple $100,000, it's like, that's your job. Your job is to deliver. But I agree. I mean, I don't think the sort of working to exhaustion is great. The problem is when you get up into those sort of multi-million-dollar budgets, like infamous, like Mending the Line, you are working within a production model that, one, most people are familiar with. So they don't really want to go outside that. But two, really, the realities are every day of production that you add onto it, and that includes down days because you might be down, but you're still paying for stuff. It becomes that much more expensive, and you can't retain crew, especially if you're doing location. Like if you're bringing people into Montana, you can't say we're taking 4 days off, and everyone's like, are you paying me? Right. Because now they're stuck there. You're paying out per diem, right? You're paying for hotel costs, rental, like cars. So stuff really adds up, you know, and you go, why can't you just shoot and cap it at 8 hours? Well, 8 hours is definitely not enough time to shoot 12 hours worth of material. Right. So then that means in a 5-day week of switching down to 12 out, going to 8 hours. Well, you've got 20 hours now you're tagging on to the end of the shoot in order to make up for that difference. Right. And so you end up adding days, because if you reduce it by 4 days every single day for 5 days, that's 20 hours of shooting you're gonna have to make up somewhere else. Right. So now you're adding another day, another 2 days. Right. And so that's possible, but that's why a 12-hour shooting day has been such a norm, and most people don't mind it because they get their rate is time and a half after 8 hours. So in a traditional production model, when you feel compelled to hire all these sort of standard crew positions, it's impossible. It's very, very challenging to break out of that mold. With with Negative and Layover, we inverted your typical production model. Instead of hiring a full crew for the entire shoot, we only sort of hired people as we needed them. And we spread out the schedule so that we could sort of help manage the production. Like when you've got 22 days and you're shooting that consecutive, right? Like, weekends off, I get it, but like you're basically consecutive weeks of shooting. You need a crew on like the production management side, because me as a producer, or me as a director producer, I don't have time to be thinking about tomorrow. I can't do it. So I hire people to be thinking about tomorrow and be thinking about next week. When you do it like we did on Layover Negative, you get rid of that crew, but that means you have to take it on. And the only way to sanely do that is to be spreading out your schedule. So like when we did Layover, we shot Layover all on weekends. So we were able, one, we all had day jobs. So like I still had my day job, so I had to. But two, it was really nice because we would sort of, the week prior, we would sort of rev up for that weekend. We knew exactly what we're shooting. We would produce what we needed to be shot. We would start prepping stuff, scout locations in the evening. We would do rehearsals, right, sort of throughout that week. And then on the weekend, it was like go time. But the thing was, we were not thinking about the following weekend. Right. We were just focused on that weekend. And then Monday, we'd be down because we were all exhausted because we were shooting at night. And Tuesday, we'd start back up and we'd prep for that next weekend. Now, if we had a location, we might be planning that ahead of time. But like, that's where doing something like this, what's to your benefit is that very long, soft prep period. Right. When you're location scouting, but you're doing it on your own time, you're searching for all these things, but you're doing it for months leading up to your production because you could spread out that process, right? You're not trying to, it's not like you have a date in 3 weeks. And so you better find these locations. And now you're hiring people because you need help to do it because you got to prep the rest of the movie. Right. And so the one thing though, and the reason why, again, I took Negative and spread out that time was, and by the way, on Layover, and I believe Negative as well, we certainly never shot 12 hours on any day. And I believe the most we ever shot was maybe 10. And that would have been once on Negative. Layover was pretty much an exclusively 8-hour day shoot because we'd start shooting at 8 p.m. and we'd get to like 4 a.m. and we're like, we're done. Like too tiring. We're too much. It's good.
It's not even wait for the sun.
Because we're shooting nights, but we're not flipping to nights for weeks. We're doing it on the weekend. And so that kind of hemmed us in. But again, because we'd get to a location, we'd put up two lights and we'd start rocking and rolling. We'd start shooting.
Right.
And that would give me just an enormous amount of time to capture performances. So even though we were shooting 8 hours, I was getting 15, 16 takes sometimes per camera angle. You know, so getting a lot of material,
right.
which allowed
Just
me to work with
to
Natalie,
work with, it
work with
like
Carl, get the best performance, and give me enough material that I could cut together the best performance, right? Instead of like, we got 3 takes and every take of this line is crappy. And then you're like, well, do I cut it out or do I leave it in or I play it off screen or like what?
Yeah.
And so,
you
know, and with negative, because it was a higher budget, it was also a higher concept, right? It was a spy thriller. We were going to have action sequences. We were going to have fight scenes. We were going to have chase scenes. We were going to do a lot of stuff in the car. It was a road trip movie. I mean, you know, so in that case, though, what was so important to me was that I modeled the layover behavior, you know, approach, which was to give ourselves as much time to be shooting versus setting up to shoot as possible. And so I wanted days. I wanted time. Oh, and I just said, this is how we can do it. Because what I believe is I don't like, look, if you can shoot a layover in 12 days, awesome. Like, great. And you're not compromising. What I don't want to do is prematurely sort of bracket us into a shooting schedule that is going to hem me in and prevent me from having the time to work with my actors, to get good performances, to tell the good story, to connect with audiences, and thus have them like the film, right? Because especially on I don't have even on negative at 100,000, I don't have any, like, there's no magic to hide behind. You know, you're still, and that was actually one of the problems, unfortunately, with negative, was there was just something about the story that was not, I worked with Adam, and I think he's fantastic and very talented, but we just struggled with, like, the story, right? Like, what is this movie really about? And I think that's what audiences sort of recognized in the film, and why a lot of people seem to not connect with it or like it. That was a misfire on my part, to not really take the time in the script stage to really figure out what's not just the plot, but what's the story here.
Where people are connecting and
yeah,
like,
you know,
like
I mean,
that,
like, for example, negatives of the story of, I mean, Layover is the story of a woman who's suffering from this existential fork in the road. And, you know, the audience connects with that because everybody's been there. Everybody's experienced these kinds of forks in the road and wondered if they made the right decision, you know, and that's the story that's underneath just the plot of a girl who's going from place to place in LA. And so with negative, though, the reason why I end up pushing so much, I mean, look, if you're on a 22-day shoot and you got actors like Brian Cox and Patricia Heaton and Wes Studi, right? And you got these, like, pros, and then you got, like, Sinkwell Walls, who's fantastic, and Perry Matfield, who's fantastic. You don't need 15 takes. Right? They're delivering. I mean, Brian, he'll give you 2-3 takes and you don't need anything else. Like, you know, on a micro budget, you don't necessarily have actors of that caliber. Not to say your actors aren't great, but maybe they do need more takes. Maybe they need time with you to figure this out. And so when you're shooting this stuff, if you could set yourself up for opportunities to spend more time capturing takes and capturing performance, everything's going to be better. Being able to put together a scene, utilizing, you know, 5 different camera angles with 10 takes each, you're going to be able to put together a good scene, you know? And what I love, though, about having time, like, I mean, listen, I would love to have 6 months to shoot a film. Like, I think that would, even 3 months, even like 2 months, right? I mean, I've never had that. I've had the 22 days. Like, but having that time, one, it certainly gives you the opportunity to sort of approach how you're shooting it in a different way, because you have time to set things up, right? You have time to set up those really intricate dolly scenes, or like complicated Steadicam scenes, or like, you know, stage action that's bigger, because you have the time to actually shoot it appropriately. But the other thing that I like is that it just allows opportunity for discovery and consideration, right? You can sort of step back for a second. You're like, is this really, I know we've shot half this scene, but I'm starting to think this is not the way we should be shooting it.
Well, let's
tear it down and let's start over.
Of someone like a Kevin Smith, because I know that Kevin, like, he edits his movies while he's shooting, and so I would love to have.
So does Soderbergh.
Yeah, I would love to have the energy Like you said, because there's that thing where like when you're doing one of these things where it's like a layover, like you're prepping for the next, like all of the things like of that day, and then you just go. But once the shooting day is over, you like nobody wants to like go to Walmart, and you frequently have to do something, you know what I mean? But you're just exhausted. But there's no
Yeah.
way in the world that I've been able to find, no matter how young I am, and it's only getting worse as I get older. There's no way that I go and I just find enough wherewithal after an 8 to 10 hour shoot to come home and start putting together footage. That is the last thing that I want to do. You know what I mean? And so I really respect those people, but I feel like if I had someone on set who could do that, who could start putting just an assembly edit of like, hey, that was good, print that one,
Right.
that sort of thing, and then put that, put that in an assembly cut, and then watch that at the end of the day. I could probably do that, and then we go, yeah, like that. It would be fantastic to be able to look at that and be like, I don't think we got it.
So that's what we had on Mending the Line.
Wow.
So we were shooting Mending the Line. Production was in August, and of course all the producers were like, are we gonna have time for a Sundance submission? Which I'm never doing again. I'm never. I did it on Infamous. I did on Mending the Line, like rush to get a Sundance submission, and I'm not doing it anymore. And I can tell you why later. But basically, they were, and I was like, well, it's possible, but we need to have an editor editing as we shoot.
Right. 100%.
And so they were like, okay, like, let's do that. And I said, all right. So I brought my editor up to Montana and an assistant, and they started cutting the film kind of a couple days after we started filming, and then there were times when, because we were shooting all, so the back half of the schedule of Mending the Line was all at this, it was this abandoned hospital, sort of a retirement home that was going to be set to be demolished, that we had taken over kind of as our studio. And so all of the VA stuff and hospital stuff was all shot there. And so it was like kind of our stage. And so basically one of our editors set up into one of the spare rooms. Right. And like at lunch, I'd be able to go up there and be like, how's this looking? How's that looking? Right. There was another scene where in one of the montages, we were shooting Perry when she was reading The Sun Also Rises, and she's on the couch, and we had that scene. There was the suggestion that we shoot it on a movie. Okay. And so I was like, okay. And then it took forever to set up the movie. And then when we shot it, like, those things are not easy to manipulate, especially with like an Arri camera on it.
And they're heavy.
They're heavy. And so as he was doing it, you could just, when we did the take, we did a couple takes, and you could just see the sort of bounce, that happens with those things. But by then it was like we had to wrap, and I was like, I don't think we got it, guys. Like, and I just kept coming back to it. And then I went to the editor and I said, do whatever, show me that this footage is usable, and stabilize it, whatever. Right. And so he was playing with it, and I could, he showed it to me, and I could see where it was stabilizing it, and you could see the little, thing going on. And I was like, we don't have it. We don't have this. This looks like shit. Right. And so I was able to go to the producers, say, this looks like shit. I can't cut this out. We need to see her reading and understand that she gave him the wrong book. Right. I need to tack it on to one of our days, and I need to shoot on a dolly. Right. And they saw and I was able to show them the footage, and they were like, yeah, we get it. Like, this doesn't look good. And I'm like, everything else in this movie looks great except this one shot, and it's so not good. Right. And then it's about problem solving. Like, okay, like we need to, set it up in our schedule so that like, we can send the grip team ahead of us. Right. And they can set up the dolly. And then all we have to do is, once we wrap our other location, we hop in a van with the camera and the actress. We speed over to that location, set the camera up, put the actress in, and roll, because we had already been out of that location. We had to go back to it, And so, all this being said, like, yeah, I mean, it's beneficial, and if you have time in between, that was the same thing we were doing on Negative. Like, I started shooting Negative in the fall of 2015, and I shot kind of like, probably the first 20 minutes. And then we had to go dark on it, because then I started making the movie Be Somebody. And that was slated to be in production in December for 12 days. And so I was literally shooting Negative while I was in pre-production on Be Somebody, and didn't tell anybody. And and then, you know, we shot Be Somebody, and then come the new year, we went back up. But during that time, I'd given all the first 20 minutes to my editor, and I said, start cutting, you know, and he started putting it together. By the time we came back in the new year, I was able to show the actors the first 20 minutes of the film and let them see, this is what we put together so far.
Right.
And we only made that for $5,000. They're like, holy shit. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's great, but you just, you know, it's just the notion that time gives you, even if within a 12-day shooting schedule, it's about creating opportunity for time within those 12 days, you know, and traditional sort of production methods don't allow for that. The time goes to the wrong things. The time goes to setting up lights. Time goes to, you know, all the things that are not up on screen. And yes, the light's up on screen, but audiences are not connecting with your lighting.
Right.
They're connecting with your actors. And if you don't have time to get great performances, like, it doesn't matter how good it looks.
People will like accept like bad lighting as, I think, mise en scène. You know what I mean? They don't know if that your lighting is bad on purpose. It's just, that's weird. Is that like there's this scene where in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, I know Ellen Karras was wanting to light everything with practicals, and so there's a scene where Jim Carrey just comes in, the room is dark. And Jim Carrey's just turning on lights, just turning them on and then going through the thing. And then once the lights are on and you can see everything and stuff like that, but the audience doesn't know that, like, it just looks natural. It's just one of those things, like in the scene and stuff like that. Whether, you know, I don't know what the intention was for that. All I see is Jim Carrey turning on lights. I don't care about whether or not like that was intentional or whatever, like that.
Right,
like,
because if you're gonna use practicals, but the practicals aren't actually lighting the scene, they're just in the scene, and then you're lighting all this. Well, now we got to time it, so we got to make sure it's like timed correctly for when he, you know. And look, I get at the end of the day the desire, the fear of cinematographers to see noise in their image, and the belief that, you know, as a result. And true to form, certain cameras can only shoot, like the Alexa is not great in low light. Neither is the Red, you know? So, but those are the movies you want to use on a Mending the Line. You don't want to shoot that on a FX3, even though obviously that there's that big news about how Gareth Evans or Gareth, whatever, is doing.
Yeah, he shot the Creator on
the Creator, as the
yeah.
FX3. So, you know, even though, yes, that's a great example of the possibilities of these cameras, the point is, like, if you're doing a movie that's fairly traditional, like Mending the Line, you shoot it with the Alexa. And when I did Infamous, I wanted to shoot on the Alexa. I had not shot on the Alexa before. I had done on one little series, but I wanted to push it. I wanted to see, what is this capable of, right? And so with that, you have an understanding of certain requirements, you know? And then, but on negative was wanting to sort of shoot that cinematic look, but I wanted to do it with cameras that I knew would perform in low light. So that's why I looked at the Canon C line, right? I'd had a lot of luck with the 5D Mark II. I owned the C100 Mark II at the time. I was like, I'm going to shoot the whole movie on this. You know, I'm not going to go rent a camera. I'm going to shoot on the movie I own.
Which
and I
is
bought
just
some
ballsy.
Right. But I knew that, like, that was the thing, was like, so for example, at the beginning of Negative, the scene where we're in the Thai restaurant where Natalie's, you know, eating, and then these thugs come in, and then it cuts and she's killed them all. So that's a great example of this scenario. So, like, we had gotten permission from the Thai restaurant to shoot in their restaurant for a couple hours after they closed. And it was like down the street from me, you know, and I was just like, this is just a cool vibe. I've eaten there. It just seems to work. The fish tank, it's all neat.
Right.
And so we went in, you know, and we had all the lights on that they had on in the restaurant when you were eating there. And I sort of had them turn them up as bright as they could be. And then I turned my camera on, and I set it to 3200 ISO. And I was like, none of this is usable. Like, I can't, it's, even if I put a light on Natalie, none of this looks good. It's all way too dim. So then what did I do? Well, what I didn't do was bring in a bunch of lights and swap out all these practicals and try and fix it. Instead, what I did was I bumped the ISO up to something, 5600 or whatever, 52, whatever it is, whatever the next level is. And before 6400 ISO. And like, so I bumped it up, and I just went up until I said, all right, all these are at a correct exposure now.
Right.
And then, and then for Natalie, for Katya's, you know, close up, I just had I had a little China ball, that I just kind of had on a dimmer that I brought in and just kind of lit her to make her look nice. And then I think on like the reverse in one of the corners, it just looked oddly dark. And I said, well, we'll just rake a little like Home Depot light up there and just grate a little fill, you know, and that was it. And so within 20 minutes, we were up and shooting because I was able to use what was there. In a traditional, most DPs come into that thinking, well, I got to stay at 3200 ISO. So now I have to like light this whole thing, and you're there for 3 hours and you get one take at the end of it to like get your actor. Like that was not a mentality I wanted to, I like making movies at, and I wanted to make a movie this way, you know, in terms of negative. So like that scene to me was such a great example of like the method I was trying to take, how I wanted to approach this film, and how I really wanted to put shots and performance and story first, and have the sort of cinematography be good enough to support that story, but also be good enough to allow me to capture that story.
Right. Now this,
you know, as opposed to being all about that cinematography.
Now this kind of ethos of your own is exactly like sort of the bread and butter of your 6K Filmmaker series.
Yeah,
and
my course.
The
course.
I do want to talk about that because
I
know I feel like a lot of people would think that we're competitors, but I absolutely think that there's a lot to be gained from your course, and I've taken I've taken parts of it, and so like, you know, this, what did you see? Like, you know, I'm sure you're seeing sort of the same thing that I am out there, but like, you talked about it, I think, a little bit, where I think a lot of people feel like there's a certain quality that is available only if you have X, Y, and Z, if you have a certain amount of crew, if you have a certain amount of budget. But films like Layover and like, movies like Primer, you know what I mean?
I mean, for lovers only,
right.
Even not tooting my own horn, but even something like See You Dad, my short, was shot down in Mexico City.
Right.
And it would continue. But yes, these examples of
like these low, like you can get like, you know, a lot of high quality, you can get high quality end product with a very small budget. And if you're smart about it as a filmmaker, and just tell me about like where you were coming from when you decided to do the course.
The course was coming from a place of thinking about, you know, thinking about creating a course, one, sort of like getting into that game, and also just like, well, what's the unique thing that I have, right? Like to start with, right? I mean, because to me, to go in and try and do a course about directing, right, is somewhat daunting, I think. Or to teach courses about cinematography or like editing, you know, there's so much stuff out there already. You know, sort of the nuts and bolts of how to light a scene and how to use your camera and like all that kind of stuff. And what I realized, what I knew though, is even like 10 years later, even after talking about this on numerous podcasts, one, very few people have an understanding of how to actually pull something like this off. Because they're not being taught this in film schools. And other than maybe reading an article or something I wrote, there's nothing really guiding you on how to do this. Right. And so, but two, I'd also spoken to now a number of filmmakers who were like, oh, I was super inspired by what you did on Layover, and I went and made my own micro budget thing based on what you were teaching or what you were telling people at that time. And so the course became like, oh, that's a really interesting perspective, right? That nobody else is presenting. Nobody's teaching people how to make micro budget films. All the courses out there right now are like, hey, filmmakers, you want to make $10,000 a month making industrial videos and stuff like that? Like, or hey, filmmakers, you want to learn how to be a cinematographer or how to edit? They're all either like business, like go shoot industrial videos and like make money, which is nothing wrong with that. But, or it's like how to be technical. But just absolutely nobody is teaching you not just how to make a movie, what goes into producing like a feature film, but also how to make that film for a buck. And I just thought there's got to be a huge number of filmmakers out there that are feeling frustrated by their ability to not raise at least several $100,000 to go make a film because everybody tells them that's what it's going to cost, right? As a result, you know, they keep making shorts. They keep spending exorbitant amount of money on shorts, and the shorts are doing jack for them, and they're not going to do anything for them. Shorts have Nobody cares about shorts. Shorts right now, their only value of a short is the education you gain from doing it. And that can be valuable. But if you're doing that, don't spend 50 grand on.
Yeah, I don't understand that. There's a new thing where people were like, and it's very recent that people keep saying this, where I see it all the time, where it's just like, you have to spend $50,000 on a short film. I'm like, $50,000? I'm going to make a feature, man. Like, what are you talking about?
There is zero ROI on a short.
Right.
Because not even from a career perspective, because nobody is going to hire you. And this has been proven now time and time again. Okay. Here's the thing. I never say anything is impossible, right? Because you just never know. And I don't want to eat crow, but it is in the industry that we are in. Auditioning to direct a feature with a short rarely ever works out. Even in instances where people will point to, like people will often point to Whiplash as a great example.
Or Lights Out.
Or Lights Out. Oh, like I don't know that much about Lights Out, but I know with the Whiplash scenario. So like Damien Chazelle had a feature, Whiplash. Mm-hmm. He managed to get it over to Jason Reitman's company. Jason Reitman was like, this is great. They tried to get funding for it, tried to get it made. Couldn't happen, or they weren't getting it funded. So Jason said to Damien, hey, why don't you come up with a short version of this? Let's shoot a short as kind of a proof of concept that we can show investors, because you're a first-time director. Mm-hmm. You know? So Damien goes, okay. So then they put together the short. I don't know where the money came from, but like, I mean, you know, Jason Reitman made a call to his buddy J.K. Simmons, said, will you be in the short? Right. So that's how that happened. Right. And then they make the short. And then like Jason Reitman calls up his friends at Sundance, say, hey, I've got a short that I produced for the feature. And they go, oh yeah, we'll feature it, because it's Jason Reitman calling. You're not cold submitting that. Right. Right. And then it goes to Sundance and does well because Damien's a good filmmaker. Right. And then they're able to use that as leverage to go get the feature with Jason Reitman on board as a producer. Right. This is not a scenario where Damien Chazelle wrote a short, went and got funding for it, cold called J.K. Simmons' agent, got him to be in the short, put it in Sundance, and everybody came to him and said, let's make a feature. Right. It was not engineered that way. Right. And when you understand that, you see there is some value in a short if you already have the feature and you already have producers and financiers interested, and you're a first-time director trying to convince people to give you $1 million or $2.5 million or whatever it is. But making shorts these days, nobody is going to see your short and go, oh yeah, let's give them a bunch more money to make a feature, because there's too many instances where people have been burned. Right. Right. And so you either need to be in a scenario where you're going through like a Sundance lab and it's like a whole process and that's very limiting, or like come up with the feature. And I just think like, so in that regard, spending, and I've been there, my short dig cost me 40 grand cash with another 20 grand in donations, right? Because I thought that's what you had to do. Right. I got nothing from that. I mean, it's one of my favorite, the favorite things that I've done, but I got nothing back from it. Like, you didn't get offers. People that saw it didn't suddenly go, hey, you want to direct something? Nothing happened. What launched my career was the feature film that I made for
$6,000.
One eighth of the budget, right, of Dig, right? So that to me went, wow, because directing a feature is a completely different beast. Even a low budget one is a completely different beast than a short. A short is, in an ideal world, it's a setup and a punchline. Right. You can't make a feature out of a setup and a punchline. You've got to tell a story over 2 hours or an hour and a half, and you've got to get through it. Right. Like, what so many people discount as directors, because you say that if I'm going to give you $2 million and I'm going to be, you're going to get 20 days to shoot this, can you deliver? Are you going to deliver as a director, or are you going to break down and freak out and lose your shit because suddenly you're 15 days in and you've lost your locations and your actor's late and like now you're in the shit and you're behind budget? Are you going to deliver the film, or are you going to freak out and leave? Well, and they don't know, and you're not tested.
Even like in terms of certain things, like I've seen things where it does not work. Like, my favorite short is Curfew. And it's an Academy Award winning short. Like, it literally won Academy Award, and it's a fantastic short. They took that short and expanded it into a film called Before I Disappear. nobody's seen that movie. No one
Right.
has seen that movie.
Right.
And you would think, like, here's a concept that clearly works, that worked so well that it won an Academy Award. But when it came out to like the idea of like a full-length feature, it just kind of fell apart because you already told the story in a way that was more impactful. Like,
Right.
like if you can tell the story in 20 minutes, then it's 20 minutes long. Like,
Right. And so to me, like one of the things I talk about in the course is like, instead of doing a short version of your movie,
right,
you shoot what's called a test video.
mm-hmm.
Take just a scene from your feature,
Which is essentially what the Whiplash thing. It's not really even a short. It's a scene from the movie.
Right. Because if it was a short, you know, you don't, people go, oh, you need a beginning, middle, and end. No, forget that.
No.
All you're doing is showing your intention with this project. You don't need to make it a complete package in the short, because again, like you said, if it could be a short, why is it a feature?
Right.
And so, you know, to me, I think that's why. So that's what I see is I see a lot of people making shorts. They're not getting anywhere. They're not getting features offered to them, you know, and then they go and think, well, if I'm going to do a feature now, I got to do it for at least $200,000. How are you getting that money? Where is that money coming from? If you can get that money and you go shoot it, great, more power to you. But I find that, like, you know, certainly, you know, there are large numbers of filmmakers out there who do not have access to hundreds of thousands of dollars, and thus their story is missing an opportunity to be told. And I think that, like, you know, one of the great things about making micro budget is like you also have the ability to sort of, you know, tell the story that you want to tell, as opposed to like the story that's going to work for the market. Because I can tell you, as soon as people start investing, you know, 6 figures up to 7 figures, like they want to know they're going to get their money back. And that's going to limit your story to very specific things that you got to hit. So if you want to be an artist, that's fine. And you think you can be an artist on later films, you got to prove that now. You got to prove that with your, like, you know, the movie. And then people are going to hire you because of that movie. I got hired to do the Hulu series after Layover because, you know, it was a connection I had, a guy that I knew, and he was putting together this project, but he bought Layover on his own and saw it and then called me out of the blue. I didn't even pitch it. And he said, one of the things that impressed me most about Layover was you got fantastic performances from actors that I've never heard of.
Right.
You know, and so the performance of the way I was able to deliver performances from these actors that he had never heard of convinced him that I was the right guy to go to for the job. Now, I wasn't handed to me. I had to pitch on it. I came up with the whole thing. Right. And so, but that's, I think, like, you know, I've just gotten so much more value out of the feature than I ever did out of any of my shorts. And I think people are spending way too much money on shorts, money that could be spent on a feature that is going to give them a better return on investment for their career than the shorts will. Shorts can be really beneficial, but I say go shoot those on an iPhone and shoot them for as cheaply as possible and use it to learn how to tell a story and work with actors.
I feel like a lot of people forget that besides the fact that like you don't come out of, no one comes out painting the bowl of fruit the first time. You know what I mean? Like they take a few tries. Right. You know what I mean? They try and they do different things like, you know, this.
Well, Rodriguez always said everybody's got bad movies in them.
Right, exactly. Right? And so there's so much like to filmmaking that there's a certain amount of screw up that you have to sort of get out before you start to realize, like, not even just like how to make a movie, but also what your style is, where like what kind of stories that you like to tell, you know, just sort of figuring out what your voice is as a filmmaker. And if you think that that you have to spend $50,000 to make a short film every single time, you're going to, if you do manage to get to a point where you are making feature films, your voice is going to be stunted because you haven't had enough at bats to sort of get to that point and say, okay, I don't like that. You know what I mean? And then you see like a lot of people get swallowed up by the business where they get in there, and you have a lot of artists coming to you with opinions and questions. And they're
not just that, but like you may get that first shot at say $1 million, 1.5, 2.5, whatever. And like, if you screw it up,
that's it.
Right. And so like one of the nice things about making movies for no money is like nobody ever has to see them.
Right. Exactly. Or
screw it up.
If you
or they know that, oh, well, you didn't have tons of money. Hey, you know, you can, but that's the other thing I also kind of go through in the course is showing you how to make a good movie. right? You got to
Mhm.
set yourself up for success. It's not going, I'm going to make $6,000, but I'm going to do it the way that everybody else does it with a big crew. And then I'm going to be in only one location with 2 actors, but I'm going to have to hire cheap actors. You know what I mean? And it's like, I'm going to have to shoot so fast. Like none of that is going to set you up for success. And so
Right.
following much more of like the layover paradigm or the negative paradigm, that's going to get you to a much better place, right? So that you can leverage that work into the next thing, into the next thing, into the next thing. Trust me, like I'm a guy who, I mean, to be able to, you know, make one, I mean, look at Nolan, right? I mean, or look at Paul Thomas Anderson, the way that they were able to jump from like a $6,000 movie to like a $12 million movie in Nolan's case, right? Or the way that
Right.
like Paul Thomas Anderson was kind of right off the bat. I mean, Hard Eight was whatever, but like to get the money he got with the studio deal to do, Boogie Nights, that's such a like once in a lifetime scenario for people.
Right.
Like, and and obviously I wish that was me, but instead I found that my career is a series of slowly building and leveraging one project into the next as I increase my budgets and increase the cast that I'm working with and that kind of thing. And then the other thing that I've been telling people lately, because this is something that I'm experiencing and I'm talking to people about, is that as you get as you level up as a director, your currency as a director is not what your film looks like, right? Or like the cool shots you did or whatever. Your currency is your ability to get cast. Not you got to know people, right? But that you can show an agent and or the cast you're going after that you are capable of delivering a good performance for your cast. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And set them up for success. Like that cast that you are a director that cast is going to want to work with.
Right.
Right. And if all you got are a bunch of like cool shots and your acting sucks and it's obvious, they're not going to jump on board. So setting yourself up in the micro budget world to have examples of what you're capable as a director and working with actors and be able to show those as the epitome of a great performance at that level.
Right.
Suddenly actors are going to go, yeah, that's a guy I want to work with. Even
Right.
if they've never heard from you before. And so again, to me, it's hard to really, I mean, the course is like 18 hours of material,
Mm-hmm.
of me sort of talking to you through all this. So it's hard for me to condense it down into 20 minutes, but like, I think that's really the thing, which is like, to do this right. And it is possible. It is absolutely possible. And not only because I've done it clearly several times, I know other people have done it. I mean, you've done it, right? So it is
I'm
possible.
done.
And so, but where people struggle is that one, it's something that's got to be instilled in the DNA of the project. It has to start from the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
from the idea, right? Even if you take that script and you got to retrofit it down, you almost have to start over, right?
Right.
And so it's got to be built into the DNA. And then it's a whole comprehensive sort of approach. It's not just simply going, oh, let me apply this technique, And so it's that, and it's just getting your film done. But the bigger thing where people have difficulty is in taking that now finished project and leveraging it. Right. And like too often people think, and I've heard from people and we've talked about it, and I talk about it in the course, is this idea that like people will say, well, I had a distribution deal and, and it didn't do anything for me. And I said, yeah, because nobody cares if your micro budget film got a distribution deal.
Right.
Like think about it. Like there is nobody sitting in Hollywood looking at all the new movies that come out on Amazon and going, oh, that's a guy that we should work with.
Right.
Nobody has time for that because now there's so many movies that come out every single day on Amazon. Right. So like, when you think of a distribution deal, I actually think you're putting the cart before the horse. Like you're thinking about a distribution deal that is going to do nothing for you because again, it's sort of going off of an old model, right? If you got a distribution deal in the 90s, that was huge because that meant you were getting a theatrical release. Right. And that meant something. Nowadays, it means nothing because I can take $2,000 and I can pay a company to put my film up on iTunes and Amazon.
Right. 100%.
Right. That's my distribution deal. Like that's anybody can do it. You can put the worst movie in the world up on Amazon. They don't care. They're not curating it because you're paying somebody $2,000 and you're just putting it up for sale. It's just another product. Amazon,
as long as it's got the deliverables, it's fine.
Exactly. Now Netflix is different because they curate what's coming in. They're selective, somewhat.
Right.
You can't just automatically upload something to Netflix, whereas you
Right.
can with iTunes and stuff like that. So to me, you're thinking about it all wrong, right? You're not going to get a job because your film's out on Amazon, because the only people watching that are people that are staying up late at night in Kansas looking for something to watch. Nobody in Hollywood is looking at any of that stuff.
Right.
So what do? Well, you got to rethink your approach. Who are you making the movie for? You're making this movie for one person and one person only. And that's the person that is going to hire you to direct your next movie. And that's it. So direct distribution deals, whether you're up on iTunes, all of that is irrelevant if the right person is not seeing your film. And you can do that for free. How do you get that attention? Well, I'm not going to give all that away because that's what I talk about in the course. But like, so it's not just rethinking your entire like writing, development, production model.
Right.
It's rethinking your entire distribution and marketing model that so many people think is the way to do it and just absolutely does not work anymore. And that's why I was able to make Layover for $6,000 and get jobs from it, directly
Right.
from it. And I'd never had a distribution deal. It was we self-distributed.
Wow. For Layover? I did not know that. Wow.
Layover was self-distributed initially. And then eventually a guy was like, hey, I'll put this up on iTunes. And we're like, all right, whatever, you know?
That's great. But yeah, so Josh, you know, we can sit here and talk all day. I encourage people to check out the course. There will be a link in the show notes. Check out some of Josh's films. Mending the Line is out now, and it will be coming to digital and VOD in quite soon.
Later this year.
Later this year.
We'll be announced next month, and in the fall it'll be out.
Yeah, and when it does out, if you're seeing it, then there will be a link to the show notes below. So, Josh, like I said, I always love talking to you about this stuff because you're one of those guys that's in it, and you know you're never someone who's like too precious, you know, because I think a lot of that people, you know, get to that point where, you know, micro budget is seen as sort of like a dirty word, and like for me, I don't feel like, you know, you and I are those type of people that like making a movie, no matter what budget I am, like there's a specific reason why I'm making it at this budget versus that budget. You know what I mean? It's not a slur when I say I make this micro budget film. You know, like if I did, it's because I wanted to make a film and I knew this was the way to get it there. You know what I mean? Yeah. So if that's the level you're at, if that's the opportunity, right? I mean, and I think that, you know, there's two arguments. One, there's the Soderbergh argument, which is that Soderbergh will go make these really experimental micro budget things because it keeps him fresh and he can make movies that are a little bit more creatively interesting to him. And if they fail, they fail. It's no harm, no foul, right? Right. You know, the other thing I'll say is like, because obviously you're going to get people, and I get them all the time, comments, stuff like that. They scoff, right? Like they're like, how do you make a movie for $6,000? You're obvious, and it's always DPs. They go, you're not paying your crew. You're not paying your crew, you know. Right. And my response is always like, it's interesting you think that I have a crew to not pay, right? You know, and 100%. So just so people know, I do not advocate for you, you know, going and trying to get a bunch of people to work on your movie for free. You know, you're not going out trying to get a DP with a red cinema package to come on and work for 12 days straight, you know, on your movie for no money. I don't think that's ethical, and that's not what I teach. Right. So that's one thing. And two, you know, people say, well, like, why do I need a course? Like, what's the bother? I just think like where I'm at in my place is like the more I'm continuously educating myself as a director. 100%. You know, I'm going back and trying to learn about new cameras. I'm taking courses, right? Like to think that you know everything and you can't learn anything new. That's a director who will not make it in this industry because, you know, to me, I would be saying, look, I'm not going to spend $1,000 on it, but like, you know, to me to be saying like, hey, this is like, you know, going to see a couple movies, you know, the cost of this is going to see a couple movies. Well, you know what? For as little as this is, it can only benefit me. And one of the cool things about what I teach in the course is not just how to make a movie for $6,000, but how do you take all these techniques and use them as your budgets grow and make you increasingly more valuable as a director because you become seen as the guy who could deliver big stuff for little money. That's where I'm at now. My manager always has people reaching out because people know that I can make things for $1. You know, and so those are a couple of things about aspects about the course that I often get like questions about. And for anybody listening who's interested, you know, we'll put the link to the course in the show notes. It's called 6K Filmmaker.
It's not about 6K cameras. That's about making your movie for 6,000. But like, it is one of those things where it teaches you how to do it ethically. It teaches you how to do it smartly. And to think, and it just, again, there's so much valuable information in there. I'm being biased, but there's just, I wish I had a course like this when I was starting out, because it would have made Layover a lot easier.
Right, exactly. And you can do a lot of the stuff. I always talk about, because people always talk about, we have the same internet, and I always tell people this the entire time. I'm like, whenever I talk to people, and like you said, you get these people who come off as trolls, and they're like, well, how do you do this? And I'm like, well, people forget things like something like a world-class editing system like DaVinci is free.
Mm-hmm.
It's free. It's out there. People use it all the time. Everybody's using it to
even if you're cutting it, not to interrupt, but even with like Premiere, I mean, if you're editing your movie for 3 months, that's $60,
right?
$90, not a lot of money.
No.
So now with cameras, with iPhones, I mean, there's plenty of people, Sean Baker shooting Tangerine on the iPhone. Like, what's stopping you?
Yeah, exactly. And, like at this point, like there is a certain craft to this. Like there's craft to this, and you have to get those at bats. And whether you like it or not, you're not going to be able to get the at bats that you need in order to grow as a craftsman. What you have to do in this business, you absolutely have to grow. And even David Fincher shoots car commercials during his downtime in order to expand his craft. Like, I mean,
Ridley Scott, Tony Scott did it.
Right. They're all
Tony Scott's entire hand cranked thing. Mm-hmm. He used that on commercials first. Right. He tested all that out. I mean, the guy, I forget the guy's name, the director of Thin Blue Line, the documentary producer, director. Anyway, he shoots KFC commercials to make money.
Yeah. There's so many directors out there. They use those things. They use music videos. They use car commercials in order to, that's their side hustle when they're between projects, and they were using it to keep up their craft, to figure out how to do these things. And that's what these courses help you to see, like that you can make these films at budget levels that won't send you to the poorhouse. You can do that. And if you find something that's great, then good. But if you find something that it didn't work out, but it was a unique experiment, and you learned a lot, and you met some context, and you talked to some actors, and then that's also a win. It's still a win. But you did it at your failures, what you are going to do it as a filmmaker, your failures were relatively low budget. So it's not going to break you. It's not going to keep you from making another film. Yeah. And that's so important. And I feel like a lot of people just aren't getting that. Like there are no film prodigies, people. None. There aren't.
Right.
So anyway,
and if they are, it's probably not you. I mean, that's the thing too, is people will say, well, look at Paul Thomas Anderson on he had a hard time on Hard 8, but look at him on Boogie Nights. It's like, well, okay, but here's the thing, Paul is obviously very intelligent. He knows his movies. He grew up in that world and all that kind of stuff, but he also had a world-class team around him making that film.
Right.
A lot of these people, when it's their first feature is costing $30 million, and they have some of the best craftsmen working around them. It's not hard to fail, right? I mean, you look at I think Bradley Cooper's great, right? I think he's a fantastic director, but A Star Is Born is not your typical first feature situation. No. Most people will succeed in that situation.
Right.
So it's nothing against him and his talent, but that's the difference maker. That's where that can work, right? But that's not most people.
Right.
Most people are not able to hire Matthew Libatique in order to shoot their first feature, and have fantastic performers and a good sized budget. Right.
Yeah, Matthew Libatique is also the cinematographer of Iron Man. You know what I mean?
Right. And the support underneath them to make sure they don't fail. Not to say that even at that level, people can't make bad movies, but there is a level there of talent that's involved. But I think also, by the way, not to harp on Bradley Cooper, but Bradley Cooper has also worked with some of the best directors in the business and learned from them. and watched what they did and what he liked and what he didn't like about that. And he brought that in, right? That's not
Also
some dude.
has access to some of the best actors in the
Yeah,
world.
that's exactly, like, that's not the situation that most people starting out are in. And that's what makes a lot of this stuff so challenging, and why so many of these movies really don't do well,
Right.
because they just don't have that level of support and that foundational support around them.
I think a lot of people, they focus on this other stuff, but like you said, they don't focus enough on like getting actors and getting performances out of things. They prioritize because everything's toward gear and everything else. But like you said, and I think this is their things. And one of the movies that I love about your movies is that Mending the Line is perfect. There's a bunch of people just giving out like whole pieces of themselves on film, and that's what we come to the movies to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Like at the end of the day, the audience is not going to care about the things. What they're going to care about is how the movie made them feel. They're literally tone poems. That's what we go to the movies to feel.
Yeah.
And so
and not just that, but like even I mean, we got really good reviews, but even the people that didn't love the film, and just to sort of not be all, oh, I'm great, even the people that really didn't like the film, or they didn't think the film worked, a lot of the reviews were like, well, the film was saved by the performances, right, of Brian and stuff like that. So like even in that movie, right, which did well and was well reviewed, and again, it's not for everybody, but like even the people that it wasn't for, they were like, even when they were like, oh, the directing sucked and like the writing was not as good, like whatever that was, right, they were like, at least it has great performances, and you're like, all right, I mean, but that's where I've kind of, that's that, not a niche, but that's the thing I've carved out for myself. I think like even in discussions with my manager, like he can point to any of my movies and say, this guy knows how to work with actors. He knows how to deliver great performances. You can say whatever you want about the story and the script and all that stuff, but people are not like really like shitting on the performances. You can point to that as an example, and then that allows agents and cast to feel safe when they're working in no budget, which I include low budget. I include that as under 5 million. They feel safe in that environment.
Right.
So, well, Josh, yeah, man, always fun.
Love this stuff. There'll be linked to all the movies that we talked about in the show notes, and of course to Josh's course. So if you guys are interested, if you're looking to make that leap, if you're tired of sitting on the sidelines, there you go. No more excuses.
And the great thing is, like, the course, you get to be part of a Facebook group. I do weekly Q&As as a part of that. You get direct access to me right now, right? As soon as I start getting up into like tens of thousands of students, I'm not going to be able to provide that. So right now it's a great opportunity because, like, I mean, I'm on weekly, I'm there, I'm answering questions, and so there's a lot of opportunity for almost like a one-on-one type of situation. So yeah, I mean, if people are interested, I definitely encourage them to come check it out and give it a look.
6K filmmaker.com.